Welcome to this Conveyancing Matters chat when Stu and I are going to talk about dogs in the conveyancing office. Yes or no? Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property. So, Stu,
Lorraine.
lovely to actually be on the same settee.
That's it.
So, dogs in the conveyancing office.
Yeah.
Yes or no? We've got Echo as our little prop,
Yeah.
who's giving me some puppy love, and I'm completely obsessed with her.
Ah.
But lots of conveyancers in particular, because
Yep.
of course lots of other people, but conveyancers in particular, worked at home during lockdown. Lots of people got themselves a dog or sat at home with their dog.
Yep.
What did you do in response to that, Stu? Conveyancing?
It's a yes for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I can't be too critical because I have a dog in my office
Oh, really?
every day. So yeah, so I'm a yes.
You're a yes man.
I am.
I'm not. Actually, I now have the complete luxury of working at home.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea of dogs in the office. I didn't really want a dog until we got her. But I have to say, I often just think about things like, you've got to fuss her. You've got to fuss her. People that don't like dogs.
Yeah.
People that are frightened of dogs. And I have to say, I'm really rather boring. And I do sort of think of the cleanliness aspects too. So how do you deal with those practical points?
For me, it's about having a clear policy on what we're going to accept and what we're not going to accept. We, at our firm, do allow dogs in the office, but they have to be in an internal office, so they're not sort of walking around, wandering around, maybe disturbing everybody, because let's face it, dogs are time wasters, professional time wasters, as we can see. So yeah, there's got to be a limit, hasn't there? We've got to have boundaries. You know, it's mainly the fee earners that are allowed to bring in their pets. Worst case scenario, if somebody does have a problem, we will allow them to bring the dog in, but it still has to be within an internal room with one of the fee earners, so that, you know, any problems with other staff that don't like dogs, you know, we still can't compromise their position.
Yeah, so you're immediately then, you haven't got a policy that covers everybody. So clearly,
not per se.
Yeah, so we couldn't have a free-for-all where everyone could bring their dog in.
Definitely.
Because the thing that prompted me to think about this, Stu, is the fact that one of the big city firms,
Yeah.
Slaughter and May, as you know, very recently, has trialled, you know, bring your dog into the office for a day. And I sort of do slightly wonder what, you know, how different it will be for the sort of city firms in their great big shiny edifices, bringing the dogs in. And what about clients? I mean, I know you don't, you know, you'd still get a proportion of walk-ins, wouldn't you? So what happens to the dog then when a client comes in?
Well, it would be in somebody's office anyway. So we would take the client to a meeting room where they would be seen, unless there was specific circumstances where we know a client wouldn't mind. But other than that, they'd be seen elsewhere. The dog wouldn't interact with the client per se. But for us, I think it's, you know, the world's changed so much. We are a dog-loving nation now, so the percentage of people that have dogs is very high. It's massively increased, and we would be sort of cutting our nose off to spite our face a bit in terms of staff resources, if we didn't allow them, because there would be people that couldn't get in because, you know, the dog walker didn't tip up, or you know, it used to be the babysitter or childcare, didn't it? But now it's the dog walker isn't available. So I just think we live in a different kind of world, and we need to be more flexible. As we all know, there aren't, you know, conveyancing staff out there that are plentiful.
Well, that's an interesting point you made off air, Stu, which I sort of wanted to explore. I mean, are you finding that it's actually almost a necessity, particularly if you're interviewing a fee earner, if, you know, just if they raise it to say, you know, well, what about my dog, to either get a member of staff or to keep a member of staff?
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say that we've actually interviewed people and they've asked to bring their dog in, or we've voluntarily said that they can.
Yeah.
It's more trying to cope for people that have got the problem, you know, rather than have to take a day's holiday, not be able to come in.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if you go back years and years, clients in general were prepared to wait. You could,
yes, I remember those days.
Those days, you could probably get away with, you know, dates not being so pivotal, but now, of course, everything has to be done yesterday. You know, dates are so important that losing staff because, for example, they can't get a dog walker, isn't really going to be an option. So we need to be flexible towards dogs.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that. The everybody wanted doing yesterday thing. Hey you. Yeah, I mean, because one of the things I find irritating, actually, on, for example, public transport, is I don't want to sit on a seat where somebody's dog has sat on the seat. And to be fair, I wouldn't put her on a seat on a train. I find that as annoying as somebody putting their feet on the seat. So what about sort of, as I say, boring things like sort of cleanliness and that sort of thing? I mean, if you came into the office and somebody's dog was on one of the office chairs, I mean, how do you draw the lines, Stu?
Well, everybody that brings a dog would have a dog bed with them, and they would sleep in that dog bed. There are conditions, obviously, dog can't be barking, can't be terrorising the place, knocking it down. But for me, you've got to be flexible. And in terms of hygiene, we have a cleaner anyway. And you've not met some of our staff. I'm not sure. Maybe the dog's cleaner than the staff.
I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear that, Stu, when they watch this back. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of an interesting point.
Do you think that's something that most people would worry about? I just think now we're in a nation where so many people love dogs, so many people are animal friendly. I'm not sure that's probably the common thought.
It might not be, but it still bothers me.
And I think, like you say, people will be so on the train. There's probably more people putting their feet on there. Than there are dogs sitting on there.
It just gets right up my nose. I just find it so annoying. I really, really do. It just grinds my gears, I have to say. But and obviously, and I think an important point again that you mentioned off air, Stu, is the sort of supporting staff in relation to their sort of their mental health and their well-being. Because everybody says that your dog calms you down, and I think it's fair to say that the Echo does.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, with the well-being side of things, a dog in the office does lighten the mood. It does tend to make everybody happy. So it's a good selling point from that perspective. Everyone does seem to be in a better mood when there's a furry friend next to them, or availability for strokes and professional cuddles.
I have to say, sometimes if I'm teaching on Zoom, maybe for either an afternoon or a whole day, and particularly if it's being recorded, I do have to say to people, watch out, because maybe about 3 PM, Echo is going to appear, and she is going to want cuddles, and there's not much I can do about it. And she has photo bombed, she has Zoom bombed more than one session, I have to say. But despite the fact I adore her, and despite the fact I completely understand the mental health benefits, I'm still not a fan of just dogs in the office generally, I have to say.
It's does it reduce the professional standards? Possibly is the argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But I think you just got to weigh it up in a balance, and it's probably different for different firms, because if you have an office that you're in an internal building already, there may be other implications, health and safety, reasons why you can't. But if you've got a standalone office, you own the freehold, then there are benefits.
Give you kisses. I think one thing probably to conclude, Stu, because I think it's pretty obvious. That Echo's got a new best friend. I have to say, but I think one of the things that firms really should be thinking about is slightly sort of closing the door after the horse has bolted, because I suspect that lots of these allowing this sort of thing was rather done on the hoof by firms, and I suspect that what firms haven't done in the interim, just with the sort of melee that we've all gone through in the last couple of years, they haven't actually, as you mentioned at the get-go, they haven't either got a policy on it. I think it's highly unlikely firms will, and or they haven't reviewed it, they haven't updated it. And it's the age-old thing about having a policy from an HR point of view. It's completely pointless having a policy if it isn't clear, it isn't up to date, and everybody doesn't know what it says. So once you've got the policy, everyone needs to know what it says, and everybody needs to understand the expectation. And maybe even, I have no idea, but maybe firms may also need to look at their insurance, just to see whether that, not professional indemnity insurance,
occupiers liability.
Absolutely. Because if somebody's dog does get spooked and have a pop at somebody, that's going to create a different issue. But I do think firms should be really sort of getting their policies out and brushing them down.
And that's most definitely why we keep ours locked away, per se. They have to have the ability to be kept in a room with somebody else. Doesn't even have to be the person that owns a dog. They have to be able to be put in a room
Yeah.
for those very reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think, I imagine Echo might well be the star of this particular show.
Most definitely.
But, so do you think it's a good
Colour-coded
idea?
as well, aren't we, look?
Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea? Yeah, I think you did, don't you? Well, I think on that, thank you for puppy kisses. Well, I think on that puppy kiss bombshell, Stu, that's perhaps where we'll conclude Dogs in the Office. You're a big yes, and I, despite appearances, I'm actually a no on that one.
Oh, well.
So I'd be really interested to know what people think.
Definitely.
I suspect I might be in the minority.
You might be on this occasion.
Yeah. Thanks, Stu.
Thanks. Take care.